It's a pleasure to be here today. I'd like to see how many of you remember, and maybe we'll do a show of hands on this. I'd like to see how many of you remember a certain television commercial. This was on a number of years ago. This particular commercial showed 5 young adults, 3 men, 2 women, and they were out sailing in a catamaran, type of sailboat. Well, they're out sailing, they're obviously having a good time, they're laughing, they're smiling, and, they're all young, they're all well-built, they're all good-looking. And the tagline, or what the announcer says, is this. The announcer says, "You only go around once in life, so grab for all the gusto you can." Does anybody remember that commercial? Let me see your hands. Yeah, the hands remember, sure. What were they selling? Who remembers? Beer. That's right. Budweiser beer. I guess, the folks out of Anheuser-Busch, like most advertising campaigns, wanted us to think that if we drank their beer, why, we'd be young and good-looking and sailing in a catamaran. Somehow I don't think that's true, because I've had their beer, and I'm not young. Only my wife thinks I'm good-looking. And I've never been in a catamaran. So that wasn't really true. But, there was one part that was true, and one part they got right. When they said, you only go around once in life. I think it would be hard to find anybody over about the age of 12 that doesn't know this to be true, that as far as this life on this earth, we are born, and we live, and we die. Now, different people, different religions have different ideas about what happens after we die. Certainly Christians think one thing, and Hindus think something else, and Buddhists and Muslims think something different, and that's fine. But as far as this life, it's pretty unanimous. It's a one-way trip. And so the commercial says to us, grab for all the gusto you can. We usually think of that word gusto when we're talking about food or eating. Hungry people diving into a fine meal are probably going to eat with gusto. My dogs, after a hard day of following my wife around all day, they dive into their dinner and they eat with gusto. Food gets on their foreheads. I'm not quite sure how that happens. But in the case today, and in the context today, we're not talking about food or drink. When we talk about a life with gusto, we're talking about having a life that had meaning. Having a life that perhaps in old age you can look back and say, yeah, I was there, I did it. Having a life that, for one better way of saying it, having a life that mattered in some way. Well, now some of you are probably thinking, okay, John, what's this got to do with Memorial Day? Well, I think it has everything to do with Memorial Day. Today, as in years past, we traditionally gather. We gather in cemeteries or monuments to honor those men and women, those veterans who have given their lives in defense of our nation. To quote Abraham Lincoln, it is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. And it occurs to me that no matter what else is ever said about a veteran's life, you see, there is one thing that can never be said. It can never be said that a veteran's life did not have meaning. Every veteran here today, every veteran who lies here every day in our glory, every veteran, for some part of their life, maybe a short period of time, maybe a lifetime, but for some period of their life, every veteran was a part of an organization tasked with the most important job in our world today. Protection and defense of what? Not the land, not the flag. Protection and defense of the Constitution. You see, that's the oath we take when we join the military. We raise our right hand and we swear that we will protect and defend the Constitution. That's what the President says when he was inaugurated. He will protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. You see, while the Declaration of Independence grants us general rights in kind of a general way by saying life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, it is really that Constitution and the attendant Bill of Rights that says exactly what we are as Americans. says is, we're free. We are free. We are a free people. Free to live, free to work, free to speak, worship any way we want to. And unless, we're actually hurting somebody else in the process, there's really nothing anybody can do about it. What a wonderful idea from over 200 years ago that still works in our world today. But as we heard earlier in the poem, and what we all know, that freedom is not free. Freedom has been bought and paid for in the effort and the blood of our veterans. There's an author whose name escapes me for the moment, for which I apologize, but I would not have you think that this is my original thought. But there's an author who has said that Americans sleep well at night because rough men stand ready to do violence on their part. In today's military, of course, we'd say rough men and tough women stand ready to do violence on their part. And yes, Americans do sleep well. And every veteran, whatever else was done or undone in his or her life, every veteran is a part of that. And so every veteran, yes, every veteran can get to the end of their life and look back. And we got to be honest. We're all human beings. Nobody's perfect. No veteran's perfect. Yes, sad to say, there are those veterans who have had problems in life. There are those veterans that maybe have to look back and say, well, I wasn't that good a husband or father, wife or mother. Maybe there are those veterans who have some trouble with the law or trouble with drugs or trouble with alcohol. In the big scheme of things, I don't know if it matters all that much. Because no matter what else was done or undone in a veteran's life, every veteran can nonetheless hold their head proudly and say, but I did my part. I was there. When America called, I answered her, and I did my duty. And you can't take that away from me. And yes, Americans do go to bed at night a free people because of the veterans, and they sleep well. And they wake tomorrow a free people because of the veterans. And so on and so on, every night after every day after every night, and they sleep well because of our veterans. And as long as one veteran remains to defend those rights in that Constitution, as long as one veteran remains, then America goes on. What legacy look like? That, my friends, is to have had a life of meaning. That is to have had a life that matters. That is to have had a life where you truly did reach for and grab